Hello everyone and welcome to Season 5, Episode 19 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in NXT history with match number 32 on our list, which is the NXT Women's title match between the champion Io Shirai and the challenger Rhea Ripley from the November 18th, 2020 edition of NXT television. This match is the second, redo video that we've had in this season, as this match also appeared on my countdown of the top 50 matches of 2020, which you can go back and watch. It was season 1 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. This match appeared as match number 33 in that list. So here it is, one spot better in the overall, NXT lineage as it was, just for matches in 2020. I love this match, though. I think it's a little bit of a hidden gem in that, people liked it, but I don't think it really got the overall recognition that it truly deserved. It was at, overall not the best time for pro wrestling with the pandemic. We were still, empty arena shows, and we were kind of coming out of that a little bit. With the NXT events at the Capitol Wrestling Center, they had limited fans in there. They were still kind of sort of doing the whole Thunderdome thing. And I didn't like the vibe, and I'll talk more about that vibe in another video. So I won't go into too much of it here. But a lot of matches really fell short, of what they could have been just simply because of the environment. But this is such a good, TV title match. And the reason I say this is it's a really, really fulfilling match. But because it's on TV and because, it's in front of this limited crowd, they don't go completely wild like you would expect on a pay-per-view. There's not a million kickouts in this match, and, no finishers are kicked out of, and it's really good fundamental wrestling where one person, was able to beat the other. And this was, shortly before Rhea Ripley would transition to the main roster. This was kind of where, she was starting to begin to wrap up her NXT career. And she really did a great job of putting over Io Shirai here, but also, showing that she's such a dominant force that, we want her to succeed on the main roster. This match, made logical sense as being for the title, and it was a little unfortunate because, Rhea lost the title at WrestleMania to Charlotte Flair, which I had no problem with at the time, but we never really got, that big moment of someone then beating Charlotte. These two, they did the triple threat match with Charlotte at the In Your House event, where Io ended up winning the title. Charlotte did not lose the fall. So, this was kind of the big match between these two, but neither one really got that victory that I think they needed, and that, should have been the result of Charlotte, winning that NXT title once again. So that was a little disappointing, but we're a year plus removed now. So, we let it go and we move on. This match, though, it's so excellent, and the work is so good, and these two have amazing chemistry, and I've talked about this so many times on the program that I love, the big, small kind of wrestler dynamic, and obviously they have that at play here, a huge, size disparity, and, they go for the power speed dynamic right away. The very first lockup in the match, Rhea, just slams Io down and face plants her onto the mat, and they go with that, and both of these wrestlers are such professionals, and they're so good. And you have to think too, Rhea Ripley has not been wrestling that long, right? Through that NXT run, she wasn't super experienced, but she just had this natural, ability and this, to pick things up. And she's a really good performer and does a really great job with a lot of different little things. And I think she's a great testament to the Performance Center. And, with NXT 2.0 being a thing now, and the WWE, seemingly trying to bring in, all of these people with no prior wrestling history, all of these college athletes and people like that, yes, over the past couple days, there's been a lot of firings and a lot of turnovers. But it'll be interesting to see, if you get people like, Rhea Ripley, who, yes, she had some wrestling experience, but really developed through the Performance Center. If we see that, with a lot of these new talents or not, without the kind of traditional, independent, wrestling school kind of approach to it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But she's so great. And there's, a point very early on in the match where they're establishing this dynamic where Io kind of goes to run up the ropes and slips a little bit. And I feel like for a lot of performers, this kind of creates that like deer in the headlights moment where, you're expecting someone to jump off the ropes and do a move to you or whatever, and someone slips and, you just kind of freeze and you stand there like an idiot while, it takes them 5 seconds to adjust their positioning and like re-climb up the ropes and jump onto you, right? And we see that all of the time in wrestling. But Rhea's so good here where she recognizes that slip and she immediately just, picks Io Shirai up and, like she's going to give her a body slam or whatever. And then, Io's able to counter out of that and continue with the speed that she's doing. So it's just, it saves the match, and it makes perfect sense that someone would take that opening as soon as they see it, because at the end of the day, wrestling's supposed to be a competitive, contest that you want to win, right? So Io flies around a little bit. She goes for a tope, gets cut off with a big forearm, showing again just that power and that size and that striking ability that Rhea has. And she just plants her with an electric chair, face plant on the ring apron. The power doesn't stop there. There's a really cool spot where she goes for like a delayed vertical suplex, and Io, rolls through and transitions that into a small package. And then Rhea rolls that small package back and deadlifts Io back up into the vertical suplex, which was really, really awesome. From there, she tries to exert her dominance by going for a superplex, but Io's able to kind of slide out of that. And then just in something that I thought was really cool, she grabs Rhea's arm between her legs while, Rhea's still kind of like positioned on the top rope for the superplex, and she just yanks that arm back, basically like popping, the shoulder and the elbow and everything out of alignment, and then hits her with a German suplex off the middle buckle. But this becomes, her focus point is that she can use this arm to her advantage, because, she's established that injury in a really like unique and organic way. So Io goes for a tiger driver. Rhea counters that into a back body drop, but Io lands on her feet and just hits this gnarly palm strike to the side of Rhea Ripley's head. Kind of does a roll up, but then rather than leave herself in the roll up position to possibly get pulled back up and suplexed again, she pops out of it and hits a double stomp, and then she hits a gnarly basement drop kick. And at this point, the spacer in Rhea Ripley's ear has been like ripped open and gashed open, and there's all sorts of blood on her face. So this created, this awesome, visual aspect of the match. I talk about blood in wrestling a lot. That's been, a hot topic lately, with the Bryan Danielson and Adam Page match on Dynamite a couple of nights ago, where they used the blood so effectively in that one. So, it's put to work here. But then it's great, too, because, Rhea kind of gets rolling again and starts to get the advantage and cuts Io off. But then she becomes aware of the blood, and she starts like checking herself. Like, where is this blood coming from? Is it coming from my mouth? She realizes it's coming through, from her ear, and she kind of uses the blood to like paint war paint on her face, which is pretty cool. But then, all of this time she spends checking the blood, keeps her susceptible to allow, Io to take the advantage again. And she's able to grab that arm that she used as her opening a minute ago. And she starts to hit, these repeated arm breakers over her own shoulder. And from there, Rhea's kind of left scrambling, goes for the rope. She hits the basement drop kick again, which she just used to, bust open her ear, but she hits it to the arm against the ropes. This causes Rhea to kind of get to the ring apron, basically just trying to escape and, assess the damage being done to her arm. She gets an arm wringer on the ring apron, a little bit of a callback to that face plant from the electric chair earlier. And then Io grabs her in a hammerlock and throws her shoulder first into the ring steps. So great focused work on that arm, just using these natural openings that you get through the course of the match. When we come back from the commercial break, we come back to, Rhea having the advantage and hitting the superplex, but she does a great job selling the arm off after the move and not really being able to follow up. We get kind of the traditional, in the last video I talked about this being like an indie staple, the strike exchange as they both come up from their knees, and Rhea grabs like a cravat and just hits these gnarly knees that look so good, and kind of like ragdolls while she's getting hit, and just again really shows off that size difference really well. And then she follows up with like almost kind of like an arrogant basement drop kick of her own, which I really, really liked because it's, that's the move that, Io not only used to split open her ear, but also used it on the bad arm to really get that advantage. So I love that she just like threw it out there just because, to kind of get that, little eye for an eye revenge off of it. And then we get, one of the bigger moments of the match because it looks so great, where Rhea Ripley grabs a condo clutch and proceeds to just like deadlift Io off the mat with it and start to spin her around, basically like a giant swing in the condo clutch, and turns that into a submission on the mat. But while she has this in, she's selling her arm, right? Because it's very hard for her to use that bad arm to apply the pressure. And, every time she takes that arm off to kind of shake it out, this allows Io to inch closer and closer to the ropes. And ultimately, that's what allows her to escape that move. So at this point, Rhea decides she needs to put Io away and go for, Riptide, that, modified pump handle slam that she uses as her finisher. So she goes for that, and Io's able to counter it, rolling it into a cross arm breaker. Really good near submission here. The flip side of that condo clutch we just saw. Rhea tries to use the bad arm to deadlift her out, but only has so much power in it, and Io's able to counter that by rolling it back into the armbar. But by rolling back into that armbar, it ultimately works to Rhea's advantage because it rolls her closer to the ropes, and she's able to get her feet on them to break it up. So again, as Rhea's kind of pulling herself up the ropes, Io was able to use that basement drop kick to the arm effectively earlier. So this time she goes for something similar, but she tries a 619, around the middle rope. Rhea ducks. I love Io just immediately tries to follow that up with then a 619 around the bottom rope. That's ducked as well. But then what does Io do? She goes back to the move that was the biggest turning point of this match for her. Maybe outside of the arm wrench in the corner, but she hits, the big palm strike that she, to the side of the face that she used to eventually, bloody up Rhea. So she hits a bunch of these palm strikes, ends up getting the 619, and then hits, a big like Joshi style front drop kick from the top rope for 2. Goes up top for her moonsault, which is missed, but she lands on her feet, very similar to how she did the Tiger Driver earlier. But this time, Rhea is prepared for it and blasts her with a lariat that turns her completely inside out on a great bump, which gets her a 2 count. And at this point in the match, I really started to think about it. And I talked at the opening of the video about this being a great TV match because they don't, give away the farm and they don't essentially do too much and have, all of these finisher kickouts and things like that aren't warranted because you don't have the crowd reaction to go about it. And I really started to think, and outside of, like the small package roll up and stuff like that, there's really only 2 near falls in this match. They each get 1. Io's is off the missile drop kick, and Rhea's is off, that lariat. So they, we're not, into this big dramatic finishing sequence with kickouts galore, and like it would be on a takeover, right? You save that for the bigger events. And I just thought it was really cool because the match was still, crazy compelling and just shows that you don't need, those crutches that wrestlers rely on so much to get drama. You could build drama through the story of your match. And then when you do get to those near falls, just using 1 or 2 of them can mean just as much, if not more than, using 20 of them. So we have the 2 near falls off each of them getting their submissions, and then the 2 near pinfalls, near pinfalls, and that was it really. So it felt kind of fresh and different from a lot of what you would see, in the WWE now and in NXT especially, where we get, these elongated, let's kick out of everything and move on to the next spot sort of sequences that can sometimes be a problem and completely take me out of matches. So after the lariat, Rhea again establishes, okay, it's Riptide. I need to use my finisher. That's how I'm going to win this match. Io had previously countered it into the armbar, but knew that by rolling her into the ropes that it wasn't going to work out. So this time she just turns it into a DDT, which looked amazing. That again caused Rhea to scramble to the ring apron. That's been a constant theme in the match that, after she gets hit, she's going to the ropes or she's going into the apron to try to regain her bearings. Io gives her no time to rest and slides, basically hits like a tope, sliding through the middle rope, catching her with the sunset flip and power bombing her through the announcer's table. which was wild. It was completely unexpected. I love out of nowhere stuff because we're so used to in the WWE, these big elongated, let's take the top off, the announcer's table, and let's move the monitors and clear off the pencils and everything like that before these spots. So when they happen out of nowhere like that and they're shocking, they're so much more effective and cool because they come with that surprise. Then the finish is my favorite part about this match. And I remember talking about this in the initial video I did in season 1 for this one, where WWE camera work can be so problematic because we have all of these constant cuts and things like that that'll make you motion sick. But they do an excellent job on the finish here. So, Rhea is trying to crawl into the ring after going through the table to break the count, and she gets in at 9. And you think, this is going to be this big, great moment that they give, an instance to let breathe, and it kind of resets the match, and maybe they're going to go into their big, finishing sequence here, that they've built up, Riptide not being able to hit, so maybe Rhea will hit that, and then Io will kick out. But as Rhea comes into the ring and breaks the 9, you get that quick moment of, woo, she beat the count. And from off screen, out of nowhere, Io Shirai flies in with the moonsault while Rhea's still laying on the mat, tummy down, having just slid in. And it's, she hits this move that she'd been trying throughout the match. Rhea certainly wasn't prepared for it. It was out of nowhere. You as the viewer are taken, completely by surprise by it. And of course, that's her finish, and it's enough to get her the 3. And it's such a cool, clever, finish that really seems different than what you see a lot of times, in NXT. This match is great. I think it is, a bit of a forgotten gem, like I said at the start. 2 women that have, absolutely fantastic chemistry. I would love to see them hook it up again, one day, be it on the main roster or wherever. And just 2 women that right now, too, are both really being underutilized, in my opinion, by the WWE. And they showed here that they could put on a match, that in the year 2020 was significantly better than, 99% of everything else in the company that year, and a year where that company really struggled because of the environment. And by contrast, AEW, in my opinion, handling that fresh pandemic television TV a lot better than the WWE did. This match was a light in that dark period, I found. You can watch this match, of course, on Peacock. If you're outside of the US, you can watch it on the WWE Network. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50, and please join me again tomorrow as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.